Hello. Bringing him in.
What's going on, gents?
What's up, guys?
How we doing? Hey, we're doing. I always hate leading in with the weather, but it's my favorite thing because I'm a weather nerd. And how about what? It was 62 degrees yesterday. One of the most beautiful days in Greenville, South Carolina. And then today it's like 82.
Mm-hmm.
It's hot. I say hot. I mean, it's warm. It's really freaking warm.
Yeah.
So I guess we're just in the roller coaster weather era, right? Like it's
This
April.
is it.
We're
It's
here.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful weekend. Speaking of beautiful weekends, it looked like Augusta, man, looks like a pretty damn good weekend for golf.
God, it's been so good. I feel like the last couple of years, it's just we've had at least 1 or 2 days of just like pouring down rain on the broadcast, and we're just like, man, if the course is hard as is, then you're going to throw water all over it. This year, it was just beautiful every day. It's just like every time I was like looking away and looked back at the TV, I thought it was like a painting because of just like you just got one guy in the middle, blue sky, clouds, and then trees on either side. It's just they do it right down there.
They do. I got a fun fact for you. So I've got a friend. His name is Sam Carpenter. He lives, well, he's a little nomadic, but he lives in Wisconsin. One of the coolest dudes I've ever met. So he, for a living, he builds miniature golf course like replicas. So he picks a hole from an esteemed golf course, but really anywhere, right? And then he creates like I don't want to call it a diorama, but it's beautiful. I'm going to find a picture and show you guys because, I mean, his attention to detail is incredible. But he was showing me some pictures he did, I think, of hole 13 in Augusta at the Masters course. And it's wickedly awesome. And so he's going around this year and going to some golf courses in Florida, trying to pitch to them, hey, I want to build you guys whatever you think's your best hole to have on display. And I thought that was cool. And so, but you're right. It was picturesque this weekend. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, you just got back from being out of town, right?
Yep. Ventured out a little bit more west, southwest. I guess you can call that for Texas, I guess southwest, west because it's so big. But yeah, went out to Austin area for a wedding. So that was pretty good. Seeing some old college buddies and getting to enjoy some good barbecue out in Texas. So pretty good weekend, but good to be back here in Greenville. Maybe not as hot, but you always get the humidity, and that's what South Carolina is good for.
You're not wrong. For anybody that doesn't know, Rory is our resident expert aficionado in golf, and I asked him the stupid question this weekend, or no, earlier. What'd you do this weekend, Rory? Did you go golfing? And he said, nah, man, I didn't go golfing. And I was like, dude, why didn't you go golfing? He was like, the Masters, bruh. And I was like, oh, I totally forgot that the Masters was a thing this weekend. You guys know, maybe some of our folks watching, my wife and I welcomed our little girl, our second child, into our family 3 weeks ago. And I'm just been living life in the fast lane, guys. Like, I don't even know what's up and down. Is today even Monday? I really don't know because I don't know what's happening anymore. But I forgot the Masters was going on. And then I asked the next stupid question. Who won the Masters? What's going on over there, guys? Who won the Masters? And so Rory's brother, Rory, guess clinched it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give me the deets. Like, what was his... Dude, this is like me talking sports games. What was his par? What was his score? How did he do?
Man, Rory would be able to explain what happened to Rory best, I think.
Putting him on the spot.
Man, he almost choked it away like he's been doing for the last 11 years, but he pulled together, wanted a playoff. It's cool to witness history. He got that career Grand Slam, winning every major, only the sixth player ever to do it. So that was neat.
Clutch.
Mm-hmm.
What a guy, man. What a grind that's got to be too. And he deserves it. And he deserves a little bit of time off too, right? Get some chill time. That's incredible. It makes sense. I saw this reel on Instagram of his daughter making a putt. Was that like the final hole and the final putt?
That was from the par 3 contest when all the players go out, and it's like their last. It's on Wednesday, so it's their last like kind of day of like fun and chill. They go out with the family, but if the whole curse around the par 3 is nobody who's won the par 3 has won the Masters that year, or is it ever? Is it whoever? I feel like there's been crossover. I think it's just like if you win the par 3, you won't win the weekend is I think the way that it works. So all of them usually have like a family member or their caddy or somebody jump in at some point during the round so that their score is disqualified.
Makes sense. Okay.
So that was a pretty cool moment with his daughter.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I thought that was pretty dope. That was classy move. Well, love to see that we got some chatty Cathys here, guys. I know we're just hamming it up a little bit. We haven't, as you heard, I've been out of the pocket for a few weeks, and believe it or not, this is probably like the most I've talked to Ben and Rory in a couple weeks. So what better time did I tell them, hey, let's just catch up when we do this LinkedIn Live thing, right? Let's do this. So I want to set up a little bit of why we're doing this today. So yeah, we being me, first off, I saw this exchange go down on LinkedIn earlier last week that was really interesting. And so that I took a screenshot of it. I'm not going to share it because reasons, but I sent it to us three to just kind of talk about it internally. And it fostered a big conversation, more so than I expected it to. So I had this wild idea that I do. And I said, hey guys, let's just do this LinkedIn Live thing. Let's kind of shoot the shit with the boys, so to speak, on this topic and just hear out our ideas. So today's piece is not going to be probably anything more than entertainment than educational, right? We just think this is a really interesting topic. I know I have my own ideas. Ben has his own ideas. Rory does too. All of you watching here today are going to have your own ideas. So we wanted to kick the can around and just get on screen and have a candid conversation, and wanted to pique curiosity. We want to hear some experiences too. So like if you're in here listening, hit up the comments, but even more so if like you got a story you want to tell, or if there's something that's just really firing you up and you want to get up here on the stage with us, I'll send you a link and jump in the chat and let's talk about it. So we're just going to have a really fun conversation around this topic. Our best practices equivalent to this is the way we've always done it. So what teed this up is one prominent individual in our industry made a claim that best practices are the most damaging words in our industry, or something along those lines. I know I'm paraphrasing here. And I thought, that's a very interesting take on it. And of course, I did some research as to why he said that and what was going on. And then another prominent individual in our sphere of influence reshared it and kind of had a counter argument saying best practices are the foundation to which we build everything upon, right? And I also found that very intriguing, right? Because it's kind of like, well, yeah, that's true. But also for me, just me particularly, I was like, why would the term best practices be detrimental to anybody? Why? So I'm curious, right? I'm just very curious. So Ben and I are gonna just ham it up a little bit. Rory is here to keep this train on the tracks. And so honestly, he's got the hardest job here today because Ben and I are a little, I guess you'd call it, not lunatics. We're just chatty Cathys. We got a lot to say.
That's
so fair. So I think Rory's gonna maybe chime in here or there and say, hey guys, you need to like chill out because we're talking about 80s movies and we're not even talking about the subject anymore, which could very well happen. And then so we're just gonna have a conversation. We thought we were gonna do a debate. At least that's kind of what I thought at first. Like, let's debate this topic. And then I was like, no, that's just a little weird. So so we're gonna kind of dive into it. I already got somebody that wants to jump in here. So I'm gonna send them a link. And that'll be fun. So let me do that real quick, and I will chime him in here when he's ready. Oh my goodness. So anyway, so Ben, let's just kick this thing off, man. I'm not even going to ask the question that the questions that we wrote down. I'm not even going to ask that. I'm going to ask you what your take on this is specifically. What are your thoughts about best practices, and does it mean that this is the way we always do things, or does it mean more than that? I'm just curious what you have to say.
Yeah, I think and this is obviously a lot of the stuff that I'm going to say is coming from like a digital thinker, HxGN EAM kind of like frame of reference, but I'm going to try to like strip that away and just kind of get down to like best practices at their core. Like, I think what best practices are at their core is it's repeatable, easy to replicate, things that you can write down and follow a process. It's the methodology. It's the process of how we make things better, more efficient. I think when one of the folks that we were talking about, or the thing that kind of sparked this, was around why are the terms best practices so dangerous? I think it's really only, I mean, there are probably other reasons for that being shared, but to me, it's best practices are dangerous when they become complacent. They're not evolving. To me, when you look at, like, let's say you've had the same processes for 20 years and like, man, they've been going great for us. We haven't had to change anything, but inherently in whatever kind of industry you're in, things get older, whether it's your equipment, your assets, your people. So I think there's a lot of impact around safety. Like, as things are always ever evolving, changing, getting older, there's more risk, there's more problems we haven't seen before. So the things that were best practices before may not be best practices in a couple of years, even if they have been for the last 15 or 20. I think that there has to be a level of evolution and like desire to like continually get better, that you always are going to be monitoring what your phrases of best practices, what that entails. I think it has to be hand in hand with learning and getting better, because I think it's only dangerous when you just say, we set up these best practices all those years ago and they've been great for us. Well, we're never going to be able to, or have to change them in the future. Like, that's it forever. That's the golden standard. We'll never have to update it. I think that's where it gets dangerous, is like you kind of lean on that, like, these are the best practices for us, but like, ultimately you're not learning what else is going on out there. So I'm curious what your takes are, Alex, on that, and if I'm like crazy off base.
No, I don't think you are, right? Like, this is again where I think this is a tricky piece. So I'm gonna make a very crude analogy here. Have the basics to riding a bicycle changed in the last forever since the bicycle was invented? Probably not, right? Like, it's riding a bicycle is like riding a bicycle. You get on the seat, you balance, you push down the pedals, you got the bars to turn. It is what it is. And so part of me thinks that changing an air filter on a compressor, there's nothing more basic than the OEM spec on changing it, right? 30, 60, 90 days. But we know it's important to change it on a regular interval, so we have good clean airflow, or whatever, whether it's an air intake or whatever specific piece of equipment that you're using, right? So I'm kind of with you. Like, I think best practices could be a slippery slope, just a little bit. One, my take is you got to learn the basics on everything. You can't walk into really anything in life, for that matter, but you can't walk into, managing your assets and equipment without understanding what it takes to do so. And so you got to be able to understand the fundamentals before you can get into preventative maintenance scheduling and maybe getting a little more innovative behind it. So when I hear the term that best practices are the most dangerous thing, is the most dangerous phrase in the industry, I immediately was, that particularly to me was, no. We like we talk about in the Army, and we talk about this in other industries, you gotta crawl before you can walk, before you can run. And I'm not saying best practices have to live in that crawl stage, but you have to master the basics and what is considered best practices before you can get into tailoring what your strategy needs to be around a specific piece of equipment. So I think you need to understand the fundamentals, right? But again,
Mhm.
I think this is where the other side of it comes, to where I can see it being a way to complacency is, each factory or each plant, regardless if they have the exact same equipment in it, is unique and produces things at a different rate. And
Mhm.
even if they have the exact same planned production rate, it's going to be different because you have the biggest variable of all time, which is people. People are going to do things faster or slower. Some plants are going to be more optimized than others. And you can try to force a square into, a round hole, or a square peg into a round, or dude, I said it backwards, right? It's whatever it is. I always get them backwards. But anyway, you guys would get what I'm saying, right? Like, it's just going to be different. So
Mhm.
you need to understand the basics, and then you need to be able to take that with you and maybe mold it, so to speak, around what your program and what you're trying to do is. And so I am going to bring somebody in who asked to come in here, and I'm going to ask him the big question. So first, let's bring the big dog in for the minute. Greg. What's up, dude?
What's
going,
up,
brother?
dude?
What's up, man?
How you guys
Hey,
doing?
this is the legendary dude. We're good, man.
I ain't no legend, man. I'm a legend in my own mind.
Still legendary. I'll call it that.
Okay, I'll take it.
So, Greg, I'm going to ask you this question based off what we've been talking about, right? I'm sure you've heard a little
Yeah.
bit. Maybe this is a dumb question, so I'm just going to say it, whatever. Can you have a world where that's either, man, I forgot how to say it now. So what I'm trying to ask you is, can one live without the other? Can you live in a world that's in no best practices, you're just doing things, or are you living in a world that's just best practices only? In my mind, I think they kind of have to be married, right? But I'm not on the shop floor every day. I know some other folks are, but I don't see it, and I don't talk to everybody like you do, Greg. What do you think about the dynamic between the two, and then where do they meet in the middle, and how do they complement one another?
Well, first off, it's not black and white, so you really are going to see the variability based on scenarios. Where is it happening? But if you don't have any best practices, and I'm going to equate best practices to over the decades, because it's a term that kind of describes something else. It was something somebody came up with to explain, these are the most ideal things you could be doing from a standardization perspective that fit the context of the outcomes that they deliver. Well, fucking nobody's saying that. They want to say best practices, right? So what you said, Alex, about the basics playing the most, in my opinion, critical role, aside from, the variance, you got to have that foundation. So I think they play together. I would argue that the idea behind best practices is more towards that standardization. And I don't think they're black and white. I don't think it's one or the other. If you don't have best practices or something like it, use whatever term you want. Something that is step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this is why. This is what it does in this environment, that environment, with this piece of equipment. If you don't have that, you're haphazard, straight up. You're more likely to be reactive, which is not good, right? Some things you must be reactive to in a maintenance environment. However, when you can, in a sense, control the outcomes, or let's say influence the outcomes, not control, but influence the outcomes to reduce likelihoods of catastrophic failures or minor failures, using what we're going to call right here and now best practices, common knowledge that's been proven out, that's well supported. It's not just made up, which the made up part and kind of the fakeness, or people out there that are just, charlatans, that's where best practices are dangerous. The other thing that would make best practices dangerous is if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. But I think you need them. But I think they're kind of two sides of the same coin. I hope that's fair, because I don't want to like say, boom, this is right versus this is wrong. I would lean on somebody like George Williams to give me a better answer that is just ironclad. Hey, this is how it is. But you have to be careful with that too. So I think it was a general statement. So instead of answering your question, I'm thinking about the comment, because I was like,
Yeah.
Sure. But, forget about that. Best practices play all day, every day and lack thereof.
Yeah.
And when lack thereof is happening, you're running around without any direction.
Well, so you're right. And so this is what we're trying to do as a society, so to speak. So I'm kicking my feet up on my stool over here. I'm getting comfy because I'm about to dive into this one, man.
Do it.
So let's take a bigger step back on this big picture, right? There's going to be a talent shortage. There already is a talent and labor shortage across every industry, not just manufacturing, not just asset intense industries, finance and services, you name it, right? Like it's just harder to find good people. Not only that, but those that also are tenured and experienced in their field. I think the statistic I last saw was 50,000 boomers a month are retiring right now. They're expected to be 1 million that have retired this year. That math probably doesn't math, but that's a lot of freaking people that are retiring that have all of this industry knowledge. And, we've been talking about the digital twin age or digital transformation age for me, what feels like 10 plus years, probably for some others a while, right? Probably much longer. But the fact of the matter is what I'm getting to is we're trying to get to a place, whether it's, you're using a CMMS or an EAM or software or even paper, like that's still, I think that's kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, but that's still what we're trying to get at is if you hire somebody to be on your maintenance team, right? Which, by the way, I don't know of any of these other than maybe one or two, but I don't know of any colleges out there that are like, hey, come grab a 4-year bachelor's degree in maintenance and innovation, right? Like that shit doesn't exist. You can get them from 2-year schools, and that's super cool. It's the maintenance world is more of a trade, right? Than it is, I guess you could call it a blue collar profession, so to speak, where you can't get these higher ed education courses on it. I know some people are breaking the mold on that, like George Williams with his classes at University of Wisconsin-Madison has a few. Those are super awesome. I've attended one of them. They're phenomenal. And we need to see more like that. Like we need more education enablement. But what I'm getting to is when you hire a maintenance technician to come on your shop floor and begin work, you are probably making the assumption that they don't know what they're doing and they need to be effective quickly, right? And so best practices can help set up somebody young in their career for success. Because if we have it documented and standardized to our plant or our facility, then in theory, somebody should be able to pick up an iPad if they know how to turn a wrench. But that's a conversation for another time. And they should be able to go out and follow the steps and see the information provided before them to go do what they need to do. That's where I think best practices are becoming even more important today than they were maybe 20 or 30 years ago. But at the same time, we need to offer flexibility, and we need to make sure that these folks don't come in and this is just the lanes that they live in, right? Like this is the bumper lanes. This is my checklist is change the air filter, do this, do that, inspect the meter, and I'm done. And that's what I'm afraid. And where I could see the opposite, right? Playing devil's advocate, I could see where it's a slippery slope of leaning into, if you just do the check boxes on the best practices or the standard out plan of what's happening, then you're going to lose opportunity for somebody to look at this piece of equipment and something stand out to them. And they say, that doesn't look right. Can I look that up in the notes in my tablet, or do I need to go ask somebody?
That right there is the danger zone. So that's where I tend to think, hey, we should be aware, not in such a hyper vigilant way, but you have to have some vigilance to what that is. If you lean purely on said best practices, that's one thing. Gives you a foundation, gives you a start, gives you a place to kind of understand how you're moving around, how and why you're moving around the facility, or out on oil rigs, whatever it might be. But you still have to have that, I almost call it like a diffuse awareness of the other potentialities. Now, somebody that's new, that's still learning, that has the basics kind of in place, they still have to grow their actual knowledge base, because from the classroom, etc., without like apprenticeships or being a journeyman, hanging around some of these guys and gals that are going to retire and kind of learning from them in bits and pieces and getting that context, or hearing all the stories from people that have been in the trenches. Without that, then you do have blind spots, and those will change over time. The other thing that's really worth being cautious about, I suppose, or maybe a little bit more intentional, is when you're applying best practices. Let's just assume that we're gonna just lock in best practices are going to be utilized and applied. We want to see how that really works, because that will slightly change environment by environment. And the messaging sounds the same over and over and over again, but that's what it's really all about. What you were describing to me, Alec, to us, I should say, when you're explaining that, is almost getting back to that set it and forget it concept, where, you know, I've learned all these things, I've studied it, I've read it, I've talked about it, but I have yet to practice it. It all changes. So, Ben, I'm curious for you, because I think you and even Rory, well, you too, Alex, represent the generation that's now essentially in charge of this, right? I'm right in the middle, right? I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm watching everybody start to leave. I love getting them on to collect the stories on CMMS radio so that it's there, it's somewhere, get somebody to listen to it, and maybe they like it. But for all of you, this is yours now. And so I wanted to ask Ben, what are your thoughts on that whole concept with regard? I'm not hijacking here, Alex, sorry.
No, dude, go for it. I love it. Yeah, let's do it.
On the idea behind best practices as a term, and how you see whether it's truly dangerous or really we should lock in on that, and then how that's going to have an impact, like anything at all, based on what I said. Jeez, I just hijacked. Sorry.
You're all good. I mean, that's a really good question. I think for the next generations that are going to be coming up into this space, I think just inherently there's a lot more challenging going on. I think asking the real questions of why. I think just because things are, that's kind of why I was saying with best practices, if they've been set for like decades, and that's just how they've always been, and the previous folks who were working on those every day and help build them, they're starting to move along and retire, and there's all that extra tribal knowledge that they're taking with them. New generations of workers are going to be coming in and trying to understand, you know, the why behind it. Like, why do we set it up like this? We've got a ton of problems here that nobody's really addressed. We haven't really changed the verbiage of it since the early 90s or whatever it may be. It always changes, but I think there has to be more explanation of why, and I think that we can improve best practices to maybe include a little bit more description of like, kind of like, here's how you do it, but here's the why behind it, and have people feel empowered and more involved. And I think that kind of changes the part of this conversation to, I think, best practices. It needs to be organizational based. Like, it has to be top to bottom with your organization. Everybody needs to be on the same page. Like, here's the best ways to do it, but this is why it's important to us. You need to really cultivate a culture that builds towards your mission. So whether it's you're trying to just manufacture a ton of stuff, become an industry leader in whatever your company is doing, selling, creating, I think it needs to kind of come back to like maintenance and doing things the right way with best practices. And I say best practices, you can use best practices lowercase or uppercase. I mean, it really needs to be personal to your organization. But to me, I think if nobody is rowing the same way in the boat, then you're just going to be kind of going in a circle or nowhere at all. So that's where I think with people, they're going out and hiring some great new folks, kind of in their 20s that haven't done anything in maintenance or manufacturing or whatever it may be before. And they want to feel like they belong somewhere. And I think our generation wants to kind of break some of those guidelines. And so you kind of have this back and forth culture of, this is how we know that we need to do it as a company, but we have brought in some folks who want to be challenging it and evolving, and then bringing in new technology. How can we still maintain our best practices, but also work in the other things there? So that's kind of what my take would be. I think we're difficult. The younger generation, we like to challenge authority and like do things a different way and really kind of just go in and play. Like if I kind of go back to like if you get like a Lego set, you kind of want to just like put it together rather than follow just the directions. And then once you kind of have built something like that looks nothing like it, you're like, I should probably go back and follow the directions that were given to me. So it's like wanting to go off and do your own thing, but at the same time, it's good to have that structure for those of us kind of like stepping into these roles. So that would be my take on it. I'm curious what you guys would say.
No, dude, you're hitting the head on it, right? And so I think first before I dive into it, I want to reference two comments real quick that were just made. My new friend, thank you, Greg, for this intro. Matthew Knuth from Uptime dropped a comment and said, he saw the post. He agrees with Mr. Williams on the response, but he's basically saying that maintenance and reliability best practices have been referenced universally and adopted by practitioners and subject matter experts for decades, right? They've been proven methods, and these methods are constantly being peer reviewed and improved upon. I think that is a good thing to point out, right? If we're arguing that best practices are going to kill innovation, that right there is a solid piece of evidence to say, not really. We're constantly looking at this and we're reviewing it, right? Like if today's best practices become yesterday's, work order management or scheduling or whatever, right? Like that's one interesting take behind it. But I got to make another call out here, shout out. I don't know if my boy's on listening to this or not, but my friend Mark LaPlante at HxGN, who's on the asset performance management team, he also sits on the technical writing committee for the ISO 55001 or 55,000, which is, the industry standards organization, 55,000 being asset management standards. So I think if we're going to, which by the way, he shares that seat with an individual who initially said the words that best practices were dangerous to our industry. I find that interesting. But anyway, if we're going to have an ISO, if everybody, we need to have standards first off, right? We need to have a benchmark that is, this is what's acceptable, not only from a safety application standpoint, but taking care of equipment, how things are done, where we find the most yield of success. We need to have a standard threshold. And that's obviously why the ISO committee has put together a team and wrote out, sorry, Mark, but the god awful, most boring book I've ever read in my entire life, which is the 55,000 standards. It's brutal to get through. It's important that we do that. And so I want to take a minute, and I think I can share my screen. Yeah, here we go. So Palm Beach County in Florida, I believe that's Florida. They have an ISO 55001 case study framework implementing people-led asset management using 55001 framework. So this is a very large water utility provider that clearly has an absolutely rock solid success story as to how best practices and standards are achieving providing clean water to its people. It's not a manufacturing plant, right? But this is an asset intense industry that is providing a service to a customer base and 600,000 residents. It's, that's a lot of people. It's not like LA, right? Or New York where it's, millions, but 600,000 people is quite a lot of people to constantly be supplying water to. 600 people on the workforce. I'm just looking at some of these numbers here. Operating budget of about, or manage assets with a replacement cost, $5 billion. That's crazy. And, they needed to find a better way to manage their assets. And how are they going to do it? And so what's the standard? So they took the approach on the ISO 55001. And they put together a success story out of it. Roadmap. How did we do it? What did we learn? What went right? What didn't go right? This is what's important to me. More importantly, is that we're sharing this information, right? That's we're sharing the information. Obviously, it's what we did at Streamline. We love everything about shared knowledge, and it's what we're going to do at Reliable Plant, Greg, here in a couple months, right? Like we're going to continue this train of shared knowledge on how we can find mutual success. But I just encourage everybody, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat if it'll let me, go check out these case studies because A, they're great. And B, if you need a little help and a little nudge, get after it. So anyway, what I'm getting at with making that reference is there's big companies and there's small companies out there that have taken an approach to implementing best practices and standards within their organization to meet a, let's call it, customer satisfaction threshold, right? And for asset and maintenance management, who are our customers? Well, that's our machine operators, literally everybody inside of the facility, right? We're providing maintenance to the equipment to make sure it's operating safely and reliably so we can produce XYZ product. And so just looking on that case study sheet, I was going to try to play a video, but huge company, Veolia Water, right, worldwide, they have a case study in providing standards within water production. Michigan State, a lot of these are, well, not a lot of them, but some of them are, public sector entities, but some of them aren't. Some of them are power providers. Geneva Airport's another one of them. So I think, again, going back to the argument of, if it's such a horrible thing, then why do we have so many success stories coming out of this? And that sounds like an attack. It's really not. I don't like the way that we're making a blanket statement that that's the most dangerous phrase in our industry, when we have a lot of proven success out of it. It is year over year being peer reviewed and being updated constantly. We still need room for that innovation where we can make it better and we can be better and we can take the foundation and run with it. So I'm going to jump off that soapbox. And Carlos had a question. He said, are the standard HxGN EAM functionalities considered best practices within asset and maintenance management? And that is a great question. I'm not going to answer that right now because, to be truth be told, I don't know. But I do know that HxGN EAM is highly customizable and highly flexible, right? So we can make it become functional around best practices and standards around maintenance and asset management, right? That's kind of the beauty of what our product can do, is it can be tailor-made to be around best practices, whether that is industry best practices or maybe, and Ben, you said this, I can't remember if you said this earlier in the conversation. I know you said it at one point. Maybe it was one of the chats messages we had last week when we were talking about this. Best practices could be industry-wide, right? Or it could be best practices within your maintenance team. So what does best practices mean? Or what does it mean? How are we going to define it? And so if we're going to define it on a micro level on your team, then we need to make sure that we're documenting it. And how are we doing that? And can we do it within our application, our CMMS or EAM, or in our case, right, HxGN EAM? Can we do that? Yes, I know we can do that beyond shadow of a doubt. But I think I want to kick the ball to Greg or Ben or Greg, whoever wants to jump in first on that topic piece of, best practices, right? We do have industry standards, obviously from ISO and for some other verticals, but maybe there's best practices. How are we going to define it on the micro level? So I guess let me ask that question. How do we define it on the micro level?
I'll take a shot at that. So on the micro level, this is where I'm often kind of bringing people to, the context of specific environment. So that could be industry, that could be your specific environment. And that's where there might be some slight changes. For me, the whole concept of best practices does in fact provide those bumpers, a framework from within to work. It's foundational, but it's not so static or locked down that you can't make adjustments. So the best practices can become our best practices based on how things happen, how things unfold in our very specific environment, in this plant or in our organization. That's the whole idea behind that. That's where it actually has an advantage. It's not supposed to be, we've always done it that way. It's supposed to be, here's the best practice. This is how it's typically done. This is why, based on these standards. However, we have this, that, or the other slight adjustment based on our working experience, based on the feedback we've gotten, based on the tribal knowledge that Ben was referencing that we've captured in our EAM or CMMS or otherwise, right? And that's where it starts to live with that specificity for our environment. It's not just, hey, I read this in a textbook. Hey, this is what happened in the coursework that I did. It's that plus that, plus, hey, here's what we're actually seeing in our own environment, because we run at a certain, let's say, temperature or whatever. We have to make a slight adjustment on those best practices because this is our best practice. Fair enough?
Yeah, it's pretty fair. I don't think anybody could say that better, to be honest.
I think there's a ton that could.
It's just pretty GM up. While we transition to Pinch, and Greg, if you got to bounce, no worries, but we love having you here, so you're welcome to stay as long as you'd like. Want to kind of kick it to the. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll just say thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and you were right about Reliable Plant. We're going to do a bunch of good work there, and thank you for being on the panel with me. I just dropped an announcement today, so we'll see you in June. Reliable Plant.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Thanks, Greg.
All right, boys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Greg.
You got it. Take care.
Yeah, that I'm glad he mentioned that. Yeah, or at least well, I guess we're going to go to Reliable Plant, all three of us. I'd like for all three of us too.
Yeah.
But we're going to go to Reliable Plant here in a couple months, and I've got the pleasure of providing a session, 45-minute session titled around an email that changed a maintenance team's mindset. We're going to talk about that. It's going to be super cool. And then Greg invited me to be on his panel with some absolutely legendary individuals such as Trent Majunkin, my boy Trent from Oshkosh. Love that dude. And then a couple of folks that I get to meet that I feel like are, again, legends. Andy Gager being one of them. Brian Bieschke is another one of those. So I am super thrilled to meet those guys. So anyway, I didn't realize we've been talking for like 43 minutes. This is kind of wild. So I want to
where the conversation goes, Alex. You get everybody fired up and don't even look at the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess I want to transition and pivot just a little bit, right? More towards the downswing here. Let's start. This feels like it's naturally kind of wrapping up, right? I feel like we've said all we could. So first, before we kind of go on the tail end, if you've got stories, something you want to say, obviously, please hit the comments up. We want to hear those, and I want to hear what you have to say about it. Perspective is everything, right? And I know Rory, Ben, and I live in our own little bubble, and I'm constantly trying to find ways to not live in this bubble. So I can only do that by hearing other people's perspectives, opinions, and stories about that. So super would love to hear from you. So anyway, I'm gonna pivot this to Ben here a little bit and say, as we look in the future, because Greg brought up a great point, right? Like we us three are kind of the future of what maintenance and reliability is going to look like, right? Like our age demographics, which is interesting because we're a generation that is going to be leaning on technology a lot more because we see the value in it. But at the same time, our generation is going to be able to sniff out who's full of crap with technology and who isn't, right? Who's offering a technology and a service that's actually beneficial versus something that's just marketed really well. So I want to kind of ask you, Ben, just, this is totally off the wall, right? Your thoughts and opinions, like as we're in this new era though, but like how applicable is the conversation around best practices going to be as we continue to move forward, especially, from our angle of being a digital thinker, right? Like we believe that the customer is the hero and we're your guide on the journey. We're just here to help. We're not here to take the glory or the fame, nor do we want it. We want you to be successful. But we also want to be able to provide you with the best resources possible. And if that means we're not the best resource, let's go find that best resource. That's what, a good coach, guide, or mentor would do, is find the best resource for that. Hence why my new friend Matt and I are buddying up with condition monitoring expertise. He's the best. And I want to be able to tap him into things when it's applicable. So anyway, how is this going to shape the future, or how is this going to shape the next 5 to 10 years with all these individuals retiring? We've got a saturated landscape of technology that can help manage maintenance and assets, to include buzzwords of AI coming into play, right? Like automating through AI functionality, PM scheduling, and things along those lines. I mean, what is this going to look like? I don't know. It's a very broad, painted question. I just curious what your thoughts are, and I'm going to shut up finally.
I think it comes down to, if at their core, best practices are meant to show the way to make process more efficient and repeatable, kind of what I mentioned earlier. Like, you just have to frame best practices not as like a handcuff for young people who are so used to like being able to explore and do things the wrong way to learn to build it up and do it better. I think you frame it more as like, this is kind of like the roadway we need to kind of keep the car on, but like you can turn off at any time to like kind of figure out the right way to go. I think if you change it to that, you say, these are the rules we play by here as best practices. This is what we've seen, and that there's research behind it. We know that this is going to work. But how does something like AI build into it? Other new technologies where the industry is every day evolving. How can we start to plug those technologies into best practices? How can we still play by the rules, but also start to develop ourselves as a company, as an organization, and through maintenance? So it's really just about empowering the next generation of maintenance professionals, manufacturing professionals, just to be able to feel like they can try new things and implement that into their work. But really just empower them to be able to just get their hands on it and do it. I think playing by the rules is something that we can do. It's more so like you always want that like ability to challenge or be like, I think we could do this better. But ultimately that plays back into best practices. If we're trying to learn how to do it the most efficient, best way, I think being able to think about innovation while still respecting and knowing all of the times that it's been done before a certain way, I think there's a lot of room for growth in the future. So I think it's you kind of have to keep both in mind, but it'll change for whatever you're doing. For every company, best practices can be different. So I think as an industry, you can know the different things that make sense and work, but for another company, they're like, we actually take it a step up, and this is what we consider best practices because we have folks that wanted to innovate and include other things that we feel promote safety, especially I think promote efficiency while not running into issues out on the floor. Like, those are the main points that I think we'll see in the next 5, 10 15 years. I think it's just, there's a lot changing, but we just got to continue to learn and grow and get better.
I agree. And that's an excellent point. So I'm going to bring up another piece before we wrap it up here. So we've talked a lot about, I guess you could just call it the application of it, right? And we're making this huge assumption that we're either doing best practices or we're not doing best practices. I think one of the other more important pieces to this, which it's like cyclical in nature, this has happened before, this isn't anything new, is we need to build within our organizations a culture that allows to question the best practices in a healthy manner, to question it in the sense of from a place of, I can ask a question, why are we doing it this way, without the fear of that topic of what we named this episode on, without getting the response of, well, this is just the way we've always done it. Because you mentioned rule followers, Ben, right? Like, that is not me. There's nothing coded in my DNA about following the rules, which is hilarious because, I mean, you two know I've been in the military for like 10 plus years now, and rule following and order taking is like pretty top notch on the things you absolutely got to do in the Army. And I do it. But there's times when I'm in the military and we're given a task, an order or something, and I do ask the question, well, why are we doing this? And man, I get roasted for it. 10 out of 10 times I get roasted for it, but I don't care. I'm going to keep asking the question. I'm going to keep doing it because I'm just curious. I want to know why. And I'm just an individual that doesn't like to be told, well, through forced conditions such as basic training and my experience, I don't like to be told, here's an order, go do it, and then I go do it. I mean, I can do it, and I'm very capable of doing it, but it has taken a lot of training to just get into that mindset, right? Like before my military career, I think I would have asked, well, why are we doing it this way? Why? I wanted to really understand the motivation, the big picture. What is it going to affect? How is it going to affect everybody outside of, just me? And the work that's going to entail in doing this. And so I think we need to foster that type of curiosity to a degree, and we need to have good leadership. And it's easy to say these things. It's a lot harder to practice them versus preach them. So I guess what I'm getting at is, as we do have this younger generation that's coming into the workforce, they are going to be way more inquisitive about things than I think we ever were, let alone our parents and our grandparents were. So we need to be able to recognize that these individuals can find maybe better ways to do things. Again, this is not a new concept, and then empower them to do so. Give them some bumper lanes, give them an opportunity to stumble a little bit. You're going to fail, or you're not going to get it right the first go around, and let's learn from that. But we need to we need to continue to build an environment where we can challenge these things so we can find better things. Again, that innovation part of it. But we can't, and I'm going to sum it up here. Like, I don't think we can innovate if we don't have a foundation to go off of. Like, it's like trying to high dive into a pool without a diving board. Like, what the hell are we doing here, guys? This doesn't make any sense. So, so that being said, fun conversation and a fun topic. I'm going to put Rory on the spot, and he's not going to like this. Did you learn anything today, Rory? Did you learn anything from our conversation? You heard everything. You sponged this thing up. So I'm curious what got retained.
I mean, I'm still digesting, but yeah, to your point, it's like, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but it's the important thing is keeping that open mind and constantly looking for new ways to adapt, new ways to evolve.
Yeah.
And just understanding the importance of the why behind it go a long way.
Yeah, I agree, man. And good point. It is, keeping an open mind is probably one of the most preached upon things, I guess you could say, or a mindset to achieve. But I also think it's the easiest thing to slip away from. It's the easiest trap to fall into, is complacency, open-mindedness, and looking forward. It's easy to stay consumed with what's immediately in front of you. So great points, Rory. Great points, Ben. Shout out back to Greg. Thanks for coming on board today. This was super fun, and this was a great conversation. I'm going to be totally honest. I say with you viewers here. We just, as Greg says, we just did this in a grip it and rip it style. We just said, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to see where it goes. And I think we had a good time. I think it was fun. I think it was very informative and, piqued curiosity and some questions. I haven't seen how many people were on board with this yet. I definitely told Ben, I thought we were going to go 30 minutes or less, but here we are at the 55-minute mark. But we're totally open to just keep having these kind of conversations, right? Like I say, if this is going to be a podcast from the Digital Thinker team, we'll incorporate some knowledge sharing and some other pieces behind HxGN EAM as we go on. But I think we're more interested in fostering conversations that pique curiosity and pique interest, and that challenge us to be better every day, not necessarily solving the world's problems within a 55-minute time spent. So, so if you guys enjoyed it, drop a comment. If you maybe have a topic you want us to kick around and maybe do a guest appearance on for our next one, which is TBD. We haven't planned it. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Send us a message, send me an email, or a comment, whatever you got to do. We'd love to hear from you guys. And, I know Ben and I could talk for hours, and I'm sure Rory could listen to us for hours too. So,
this is true.
Anyway, yeah, boys, thanks for doing this with me today. I know this was a little bit of a leap of faith, but I think it was good. And then everybody that stayed with us to hang out, thanks for listening. Go check us out, digitalthinker.com. And don't forget that on May the 6th, we're doing a LinkedIn Live for Streamline 2026 announcements. We got, Alex, how could we do it better than we did this past year? You're about to find out. Have a good Monday. I hope this piqued your day up, everybody. Take care. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.